Hello and Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to this week's News and Community Spotlight. Starting off with the news for this week, we finished off 2023 with our annual Year in Review livestream where we welcome some long-standing members of Epic to help us celebrate the 25th anniversary of Unreal Engine. We discussed some of the highlights of last year, such as the release of truly amazing games, exciting new features of Unreal Engine 5, and the big updates to Fortnite. Though to take it back even further, we opened up and walked through some of the major iterations of the engine over the years, starting with the original Unreal. Make sure to check out the VOD if you missed it for a crash course in all the finished going-ons of 2023 on our YouTube or Twitch channel. Calling all animators and animation enthusiasts, we just released an 8-part series of quick and easy-to-follow how-to videos. This series covers topics such as preferences, hotkeys, constraints, animation layers, space switches, rigging, VFX, and video references to guide you through all the necessities for getting your project off the ground and running. Sometimes literally. This series was designed with no fluff, no nonsense, the longest being only 3 minutes, so you can get the information you need and get into its practical uses quickly. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Another month, another set of free Unreal Marketplace content at your disposal. Here's what we've got lined up for January to get the new year kicked off. First, Clouds and Skies by Leo Atelier. This stunning set of both high-quality and high-performant assets consists of 38 simple textured 3D meshes that you can move where you like, as well as 9 panoramic sky textures and 3 additional panoramas. Next, Gathering Resources Advanced System by Sissons, an advanced modular system for spawning resources and gathering them with appropriate tools, designed to easily plug into your project and customize. It also features multiplayer support and a bonus jackpot minigame. Next, Ithris Cemetery by Rasmus Bagner. This unbelievable scene contains over 150 static meshes and 11 tileable textures, all of which include a full suite of LODs and custom collisions to be reused in your own real-time projects and add a little extra gothic drama. Next, Line of Sight Dynamic Mesh by Baruch Kohli, a plugin highlighting a high-performance C++ tool for creating texturable dynamic meshes that automatically adjusts to your player's line of sight for object detection or post-process effects. This kind of functionality opens up tons of potential for different game mechanics. And last but certainly not least, the Fantasy Bundle Environment Kit 3-in-1 by Dennis Roskowski. This 3-pack of AAA quality fantasy and medieval environments includes nearly 300 meshes, over 100 materials and material instances, and 221 textures for castles, caves, or even entire villages. If any of these interest you, make sure you go pick them up in the marketplace by the end of January. Now to discuss this week's community spotlights. This ArcViz scene by UE4 Arch is not only visually beautiful, but has a very clever collision system that makes moving around and interacting with the meshes feel very game-like. From paintings falling off of walls, cabinets flying open, and charming home decor sailing gracefully through the wind, there's no better way to watch a thoughtfully crafted home come apart. If you enjoy their work, you can find more of it on their Instagram and YouTube channel. The Dark Forest by Pasquale Sconti shows off a dark and moody forest scene where not all may be as it seems. Encounter strange creatures, dilapidated huts, and a particularly mysterious tree in this heart-racing environment build that includes volumetric mist and rain and a terrain path sculpted by Unreal Engine's native sculpting tools. This scene truly feels like anything could be hiding just around the corner. If you'd like to see more of this project, you can do so at their ArtStation. That's it for this week's News and Community Spotlight. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and today with me I have the incredible team of NonNobis Games, who are going to be talking about their current project, Dirge, and we're going to go into some more details about all of that. But to kick us off, I want to start off with some introductions, get us used to our guests for the day. So, Phil, want to kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name's Phil. I'm the lead developer, aka programmer for Dirge. Yeah, started out programming actually in another game engine many, many years ago in a game called Neverwinter Nights. It had a tool set that allowed like programming and scripting, and that's kind of what got me hooked. Became a programmer professionally, and now I do games for fun.
Awesome. Very excited to have you here to talk about this project that you all have been working on. Manuel, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Of course. My name is Manny Panero. Manuel is my real name. And I am the lead artist for NonNobis Games. I started this project a while ago for a school project, and then from there it's just kind of ballooned into more than that. Yeah, that's basically what I do all the time.
Very exciting. And then last but certainly not least, Nando, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure thing. Nando Cordero. I'm like the audio engineer on Dirge and NonNobis Games. It started as just like strictly just sound design, improving the sound assets in the game, and then got more into like the technical design and then a bit of audio programming as well. So it's been like a really nice experience, fun to work with the team. It's like my first major contract work. I'm finishing up university soon. I'm a third year. We'll be applying to like internships in the coming fall, as well as like looking out for more like short contract jobs and stuff like that. But Dirge and working with the team at NonNobis, it's been so much fun, and I just learned so much in such a short amount of time. So yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming to talk with us today and walk through this project with us. Phil, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the game and kind of some of the thought process behind it and what it's about?
Sure, I can definitely go into it from like a technical aspect, but Manny might be better for the kind of like the origins story. If you want to go that route?
Sure. Manny, do you want to do it instead?
Sure. So Dirge is a asymmetrical horror multiplayer game. We started when this project started. It was a group project in school for our portfolio to graduate, and there were like 30 people. And in like the course of a month or two, it was only just me and one of my friends left. And so we were like, well, we'll just keep working on this. And at that point, basically nothing had been made. We started from scratch. And so that's why it was a horror game to begin with, is because everyone's like, we'll do a horror game. That'll be easy. And then it wasn't as easy as we expected because we knew nothing at the time. And so by the time Phil joined us, we had a whole bunch of ideas and no actual game. So I wouldn't say development really started until we had an actual coding person join, because we were a bunch of artists. We're like, oh, we'll make this cool stuff. We made all kinds of stuff. But I mean, we could run around in it kind of. But it didn't become a game until Phil joined and was able to start making working code. We had basics, like we could walk around. Our doors kind of worked. I'm pretty sure he's erased and replaced every single code that we made in the starting setup.
One of the few times where the proof of concept actually got properly coded.
That's awesome. Well, I believe if you want, we actually have a trailer that y'all have brought for us today, so we can kind of get a little bit of context on that, the actual gameplay, something that we can look into in a second here. So if you're up for that, I'm excited to dive into that.
Please.
Oh man, that creature is so deeply upsetting to me in such a like instinctual, almost like I just want to run and hide and never think about it again sort of way. So fantastic work on that.
Thank you. Yes, that the creature definitely hits the uncanny valley, if you will.
Yep.
And I
Yes,
believe
That was
yeah.
made.
Go ahead. I was going to say the story about.
I was going
the
to say that
original
was made by our original artist. Yeah, same thing. Named Andres Zambrano. You can see him on ArtStation stuff. He's an amazing artist. He did a lot of the character art for us early on.
Yeah, it really perfectly hits that whole like just stretched limbs, extremely pallid, just unsettling in every single way. I love it so much. So, thank you so much for bringing that so we can see that, have a little bit of context of what the game is. And now I kind of want to hand it back over to y'all. Go ahead and first, I'd love to maybe talk about the process of how we got to where you are now. Let's go through the origins here. How did we get to where we are today?
Well, we started off.
Oh, please.
There you go. I was going to say we started off, like I said, as a project, but we realized with the Unreal Engine, there's a lot of stuff kind of already working for you to help you get things started. And with, what is it called? Visual scripting, we were like, oh, as artists, we can totally script this. We were overestimating our abilities, but that's what made us think that we could make a whole game. And it's really good. It's really helpful. I can do way more now than I used to be able to do. But when we first started, we were just college students. We didn't understand, like, oh, yeah, you just connect strings. We don't have to learn all these C++ stuff. I mean, you still got to know coding, like, kind of. Like, you got to know the logic. And so we figured out how to use the editor. And a lot of startup is just learning all the editor and where things live and what the systems can do and all that kind of stuff. And so for about, like, a year, I'd say, we just messed around. We made a lot of art out in other programs, 3D modeling and stuff, because we were game artists. Imported it in, really easy to import. The workflows are really good, so we could get some really nice assets into Engine fast. And we're like, man, we're gonna make this game so fast and so easy. It was that was not the case, but it made it feel like we were making so much progress, and we put so much art into this project early on, and then a lot of it, we didn't have metrics set up. We didn't have all kinds of things. So afterward, we had to go back and remake a lot of stuff when we decided, like, okay, rooms are going to be generally this big, and doorways need to be big enough for characters to walk through, and all these different things that you didn't think about when we were just college student artists who didn't know the details. So then when Phil joined, which he can talk about, and we started coding things, it's like, oh yeah, well, this needs to happen this way. Or even just creatures attacking you, you have to hit with collision boxes, so we put collision boxes on them, but then they couldn't fit through the door because the collision boxes were too big, so we need to make doors slightly wider. There's just a bunch of stuff you don't know when you start, and it's not hard at all. Unreal Engine really helps you with it if you know this in advance. So just always plan your stuff ahead of time. Don't just start producing things until you know what the final goal is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Go ahead.
No, please take it away. Tell me what you're gonna say.
Yeah, so what Maggie said is definitely you want to plan out what you can in advance. It's I don't know, like storyboarding if you're doing film or something like that. As a programmer, I make this mistake on every single project that I work on, both professionally and personally. It's just I think in code, and I just want to jump right into the IDE, into the game editor, into the engine, and just start working on it. But it really would be beneficial for every project to lay it out in advance, that vision of what you want to achieve, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, before you ever get into the actual tool and start working. That was definitely a lesson to be learned on this project.
Design documents are our friend for certain.
Absolutely. Design documents, requirements, flow charts if you can.
Yes. Oh. All right. Well.
Oh, go ahead.
I have to know now.
One more thing
you can also make money.
One more thing I want to throw in is a growing pain experience too is source control. Being able to manage a project across multiple people is a bit of a challenge. So when Manny first started working on this game, he was working in person with his friend Andres, and they live relatively close to each other. And their concept of source control is, hey, let's go to Best Buy, buy an external hard drive, save the project to that, and then when I work on it, I'll have the hard drive. When you work on it, you can have the hard drive. And so one of the first things I did when I got on the
jump drive.
Yeah, and then one of the first things I did was I enabled source control on the project and set up a server to be able to distribute that out, and they could do commits and check-ins and all that, and getting them just into the mindset of working in a source control environment definitely helped speed things up. As well as recover from mistakes. You could always revert back, which was a nice thing you couldn't do when you had a single copy of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see the benefit, of going from a single jump drive to full actual source control there may be some pros there along the way. But we all have to start somewhere, right? And a jump drive is where that starts,
Sure.
Then that's where it starts.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, I know y'all brought some stuff, quote unquote, wink wink, that we want to go through. So I'm excited to dig right into that if you are.
Yeah, ready to go. I have the editor up actually. So This is our main menu level. I think either Manny or Andres designed this way back in the day, and added some like rain effects and lightning. And I'll actually run it live here momentarily. So about Dirge it's as Manny mentioned, it's a 4v1 asymmetric horror, and that was kind of when we first decided to go that route. That was one of the popular genres. There's a lot of games. I won't name drop any in particular, but that was kind of the popular thing, and it was usually a monster or a killer or some sort of creature is the single team, and then the other side was usually humans of 4 people. And their only tactic was to run away and hide. So one of the major things that we wanted to differentiate Dirge with was the ability to fight back. And back then, there was a lot less games that did that, but it was a pretty interesting mechanic that separated us. So yeah, this is the main menu here, and you can see when you play live and you have lighting and camera effects, it looks a lot better. And
I think it looked great before too, but can't agree.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It's been such a long project. We've been on this project now for going on 4 years. It was I joined right around the start of when the world went crazy with the illness that will not be named. And it's quite different now. Like for instance, we have now like this news box here. It's got like dates, and this I ended up building like a web API that pulls entries from it from a external database. So like that's some fanciness we've added. We've added like player levels and player progression, so you can actually get like experience points. We tied in achievements in game, so you can actually get that mapped to the online services, and you can see the achievements and the icons associated with them in game. If this was connected to online services, you would see like your name and icon, but since I'm running locally, it's just my computer name. So I figured to get a kind of an introduction, one of the first things we'd show off is something that we just released at the end of last year. I think it was actually December 31st, is we introduced a tutorial. And this kind of is like the single player aspect, and it teaches you how to play the game. And we're quite proud of it. It'll take a tad longer to load since I'm running through the editor and not on a production build, but see how it goes.
That's fine. I think we all understand here.
That was another.
How long did it take you to? Yeah. Definitely. How long did it take you to get this tutorial up and running?
6 months ish, maybe more than that.
Yeah, it was about 6 months. I would say the what's fun is that the level was actually originally a multiplayer level, and we kind of retrofit it to be a single player tutorial level. So adding in, we use level streaming for that. So the underlying architecture and props are all part of the multiplayer level, and then the persistent level, which hosts the tutorial specific stuff. I think Manny spent a good 3-4 months kind of setting up all of the outline for the events and everything, and then we worked together the next 3 months or so, using mostly in the level blueprint, and a combination of a few other like animations and stuff to kind of go through the whole end-to-end tutorial. And what was nice is because we already had the multiplayer game, we leveraged a lot of the existing systems. Like for instance, at the top of the screen, you can see like the green text. We already had text displaying in game. So like when you pick up an item, you'll see like a text box on the right side of the screen, and we just leverage that to build in the tutorial. It's a lot easier to build off of something that already exists versus from scratch, which is what took so long initially. We were in the from scratch phase, but development kind of speeds along once you get in your bearings. So the level here, yeah, exactly. So this character here is actually another character designed by Andres. It was the original investigator that he kind of used for the proof of concept. And funnily enough, he was built in, I think 3ds Max or something, and he actually rigged it and did the weight painting and all of that himself. But it was a different skeleton than all the other characters. We actually used the UE4 skeleton and mannequin for all of our other characters. So because this one had a different skeleton, we couldn't use any of the animations. We couldn't use any of the montages of the code. So he basically just wasn't a character. But with Unreal 5, you guys added the ability to much better copy animations between skeletons using retargeting. And then in 5.3, you guys added the ability to edit skeletons and do weight painting in engine. And because of that, we were able to modify this character's skeleton to exactly match UE4, the mannequin. And as of that, we were able to have it use that skeleton. So now this character has all of those animations. So like, it was pretty incredible, like from when we started to what you can do now, all in editor.
Yeah. It's good being able to kind of pull in some of those older assets too. Really makes it come together, you know? It feels like a callback almost to some of the, you know, the more original assets. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and walk through the tutorial here. So you'll hear some AI voices that we use to generate we have some voiceover artists that are interested, and we're working with them to get a more authentic feel versus the little roboticness of the AI. But I don't know, we're still a few years out from AI taking all of our jobs. Yeah, so like you get your
just
normal...
having something in the meantime.
So
flashlight is standard issue. Use it to light up the dark. Keep watch on its battery usage.
Yeah, so since we are a horror game, it has to have a flashlight. You can see the little flashlight.
Is that the minimum requirement? Horror game must have flashlight.
But my office is
Must have flashlight.
It started off as a lantern first, actually, but we couldn't get the physics. We couldn't get the physics for it to wiggle when you carried it would work. It would go crazy and like hit you in the face and stuff. And we're like, all right, maybe we just use a flashlight. that was years ago. I could probably do it now that I know way more. But back then we were like, this lantern just doesn't work. We can't use this lantern.
Yeah, so this takes place in the actual investigator offices. So this is where the investigator squad kind of operates out of. It's in what we call the city of Wakefield, which I'll show a little bit later on in this level. And so this character, his name is Pablo. He's a deputy for the investigator squad. And the investigator squad is like this group of paranormal investigators, and they investigate paranormal activity throughout the world. And that's where like the tie into the monsters and minions comes into play. They're the ones like kind of fighting that. So this is teaching you how to play the game, and like say you can see that this text box shows you press E to open a door, and so you can do that once the animation loads.
Wow.
And then we have these I think they're called billboard components, and they show and have a nice little fade out, and it helps kind of like illuminate where to go.
Keep moving. My office is across the hall from yours.
Now he's wearing
Also,
his
when
hat,
you're
so
making
he's
this
ready to
tutorial,
go.
surprising the kind of things that you need to put into a tutorial. Like I was not assuming you needed a tutorial to tell you how to open things, but we have people who don't understand that they can interact with the world and things like that. And I guess just not everyone plays games enough all the time to just know things like that. So we ended up putting everything in the tutorial.
I always keep the
Yeah,
audio
it's. I feel like that's a
Get your service
a
weapon.
pretty common thing to struggle with. Almost is trying to assume how much the player knows and how much would actually be inferenced through either similar genre, just playing games in general. It's because you don't want to completely handhold people, but you also don't want to assume that they'll just know how it works. So it's hard to strike that balance.
Yeah, like we just generally
It is, and
wanted
that-
to
that-
have people feel like we think they're competent, but then we would do that, and then people would be like, we can't, and it's not everybody obviously, but some people were like, I can't get any doors to open, and we're like, well, I guess we'll put that in a tutorial then.
I mean, we've been in early access for about 2-3 years now, and over time we've had people kind of like become really good supporters of our game, and we actually have a handful of people that become testers more or less for us, and they'll test every new feature, new version that we put out, and they give us like fantastic feedback, and a whole bunch of stuff have come out of that. Like we have one guy, his name is Lazarus. He's based out of New Zealand, and just from that alone, because we're a multiplayer game, and he's based out of New Zealand, he has really high ping. So that really helped us refine a lot of our systems for handling high ping based clients. There are things you wouldn't even think of, like the way we were doing it before. We would just do like a replicated multicast event for gunshots. And so on low ping environments, when you're in the same state as somebody, you would fire a gun and then it would replicate out and all the clients would receive and be pretty natural in terms of like timing. But when somebody from New Zealand fired a gun, they would click and then fire. So
An open window
Yeah.
can get you somewhere in a jiffy.
So definitely, if you're starting a project, getting it in front of a wide array of people as soon as possible is something I highly recommend.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
A
Honestly,
quick note.
who knew high ping
Yeah,
would come in handy?
Yeah. Oh, a quick note on like the way that we had this level design here is we added the ability to vault through windows. So one of the things we wanted to do is you actually have to go downstairs in this level, but we found most people would just take the stairs, but we wanted to show off how do you vault through a window? How do you demonstrate that? So we just put like a big old hunk of junk and a bunch of crates in the stairwell, and he tells you to go through the fire escape here. By doing that, we utilized some like nice little level design to kind of funnel people into teaching them how to play the game. So you can see here, Pablo's taking the fire escape, and then he's going to crawl through the window.
Well, aren't you the bee's knees hopping through those windows? Get to the gun range, Pablo.
It's very, very cool. I love the atmosphere.
Oh, thank you. And like
You were so excited when
like
Unreal Engine 5 was coming out.
Yeah, like another thing from the testers is we actually had, when we were starting up in the office there and you get the key and Vince tells you to go down to the gun range, we just had the destination waypoint. But people were not making the connection, the play testers, that, oh, you have to like take this route, and they would just wander off to nowhere. So we actually changed it from a direct, just showing the destination, to a more sequential, go here, go here, go here, with these waypoints, kind of guide them along the route they should take. So there was less chance for confusion. And then as part of it, another part of that is actually when you go into the gun range,
Pick up that piece.
we actually added it so you can't go back. Before, sometimes people would go back and try to backtrack. So in here,
Oh.
Pablo is now at the gun range, and then now we teach the player how to shoot, how they can pick up a weapon, and then they can reload. And yes, because it's a revolver, we make you put every single bullet in, one at a time. And then you shoot the target.
Not bad, champ. Let's up the ante with a little more kick.
And then now we demonstrate that you can switch weapons, different types of ammo.
Okay. Don't get trigger happy, marksman. Let's get to the subway. It'll take us to the asylum.
Yeah, so I'll take a pause here to kind of talk about Nando's contribution. One of the very first things he did when he joined our project was he revolutionized all of our gun sounds. We are not audio engineers by any means, so we were mostly using free assets that were just kind of out there, and we would use like recordings of somebody firing an actual, let's say, M1911, and just slap that on there and be like, yeah, it sounds like a gun. We can use that. And yeah, he schooled us on that's not the way to do it.
No, yeah, it was kind of all over the place, but it was like understandable. I mean, it's basically like the programmer art, but like the programmer sound effects, basically. And no, I remember some people writing comments that like the gun sounded like bubble wrap popping, which kind of did, and then it's just like going in and adding like layers of detail and stuff. And I can maybe show in the editor as well the like meta sound setup. Provide like tips on that because it sounds good and isn't really complicated. Yeah,
absolutely, that would be awesome.
Yeah. You have the editor up. I think
in this
our man in the van can switch screens to look at that if you want. I don't remember.
Do that after the tutorial, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is actually the introduction of the first minion. This is one of the creepy monsters that we added. This is another custom asset by Andres, our character artist who was originally on the project. This is like based on Japanese folklore, and this is, if you've ever seen the movie Pan's Labyrinth, he has no eyes, except his eyes are actually on his hands. It's a little bit laggy because I'm running through the editor.
Laugh.
That's so scary. Oh, man.
And we got ragdoll physics, which is pretty cool too. Yeah, we have ragdoll physics. Yeah.
You might have to get those threads dirty. Crawling around is part of the job.
So another interesting thing is how I was talking a little bit earlier about like the persistent level, and we stream in other levels. Manny added these crates in the tutorial level, so it's not in the multiplayer level. But this is kind of like teaches the player that, oh, they might have to crouch through a couple of areas. And then we also added this little like barricade here.
Fireman fetching a cat. You can handle some simple ladders.
And it teaches them that they can climb ladders in the game.
One of those things that we didn't think we'd have to teach people.
Oh, they're so scary. Ugh.
They're probably
the sounds are wonderful for them too. Again, it's very. I hate everything about it in the best possible way.
Yeah, so originally these characters were just kind of like idle, standing in a corner to creep you out. And then I ended up adding character AI, or minion AI, we call it, and then a whole locomotion and animation blueprints. And I didn't tell Manny I did that, and I was just like, "Hey, Manny, check out the level. What you think?"
No, I was terrified. I'm already easily frightened by horror games. Why am I working on a horror game? I don't know, but I get scared by the level all the time. And then he hides random minions that I don't know exist. And so you think you know everything in the game, so you shouldn't be scared of it. No, that's not true. Not if your friends are adding things that are weird. It's not great.
If you're ever out of ammo, fists.
This is the real reason you added source control, was so you can abuse its power.
He
Exactly.
abused it so much.
Oh, ow, ow. And so we actually added melee as well. They can punch. I might die here, so I gotta shoot him. Take that. So that's another feature of the game. Is you got melee as well, in case you run out of ammo. We do have
Hope you didn't drop
rather
your tail.
limited amount of ammo,
Asylum just around.
kind
the
of
corner. Keep going.
akin to like Resident Evil, where you have very limited supply of ammo. So you have to be kind of careful.
Hmm.
And then so now you kind of see like the city of Wakefield a little bit. And this is a insane asylum, probably unfunded,
Lovely.
which is why it's all closed
Nothing
up.
bad ever happens here in horror
There's
games.
something
Nothing.
in this room.
It's always why you should go there.
Yeah. If I've learned anything, it's that these buildings are nothing but safe.
The safest.
Exactly. This looks completely safe. Nothing bad about this at all.
Lead doesn't work on ethereal
Nope.
creatures. They hate light from electricity, though. Shine that flashlight.
This is another mechanic that's being taught in the game, is that ethereal creatures, specifically spirits or the wraith, they actually don't react to gunshots. You actually have to use the flashlight, and the flashlight zaps their energy and gets rid of them. There's another one up ahead. Hope I have enough flashlight to kill him.
Will hear traps to find
So I'm
us.
worried I might not have enough flashlight.
And will be made in the shade.
And then so here's another mechanic in the game, is because it's spirit.
No.
Ooh, I had enough flashlight. So these traps will go off, and a monster can arm them. And some monsters can't actually see players normally, and they can only see traps going off. So it's kind of like Marco Polo trying to find the players, and these traps are how they do it. So it's a good idea for players to disable traps as
Looks
soon as
like
possible.
the knucklehead warden ran out into the sticks. Check his office for some clues. That broad
Go into
was
the tutorial
tasked
here.
with
There's also
the pay grade holding that
There's a
key.
lot of
Check
text
out the
and
surgery room
debugging
upstairs.
stuff that shows up in the in engine that doesn't really show up when you're playing the live build.
Right, like you'll see like pink arrows and like blue debug spheres and all the debug text. So like this is demonstrating that there's a note to be picked up in the game. We have little notes spread out around the level, and they'll tell you like where to find keys, where to find items, where to find guns and ammo, to kind of help the player like combat all of the monsters. And then now it tells you to open the journal, and the journal is more or less their tasking system, and completing tasks is generally how the investigators win. And depending on the monster, they'll have different tasks. The Wraith monster is our main monster, and it actually has, I think, 6 or 7 or even 8 tasks now, and I think 2 or 3 are randomly chosen each playthrough. So every playthrough, it's a different iteration, as well as the spawn points. Those are all randomized. So every playthrough, it does feel different. And so now Pablo's going
Yeah,
upstairs
we got a
to
bunch
find...
of randomized stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, the next
Pablo,
feature to talk about.
are you
Oh,
okay?
no.
You're lucky it was just a scratch. Grab the pills to get your fix.
Saying don't die on
Grab that
stream.
key.
Yep, if you die, you have 9 hit points. It's the tutorial too. Like this is sad.
Yeah, it's gonna be really embarrassing if I die in my own tutorial. But
You're distracted,
The
it's
next thing here is the next mechanic here is looting. We actually added so you can loot not only dead minions, but like if one of your teammates die, you can actually loot them and get all of their ammo, items. You can pick up
I'm just
health
saying,
items. You
Y'all knew that jump
chow
scare
down
was
on
going to
pills.
happen, and you didn't
Paging the front desk.
bother warning me at all.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, we didn't think about it. I can't warn you, it'll ruin it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat some cheese
Eating
while I'm
cheese?
at it.
Did you have cheese?
Eating cheese. I got it from the ghoul. A ghoul had some
So
cheese
much
on him, you know.
cheese. The
That's
minions
questionable.
have random loot. Questionable cheese. He ate it anyways.
Look at that cheese. Nom nom
So
nom
much
nom
cheese.
nom.
How much cheese did he have?
You had like
He
3
had
cheese.
3 pieces of cheese. And what's funny is it wasn't just like a slice of cheese, it's literally a whole wheel of cheese.
Just pockets full of cheese.
Yeah.
Well, the loot's random, right?
But now we
didn't
found
like
the
tell
key.
him to have 3 cheese.
Right, yeah, no, the tutorial still uses the multiplayer game code, so minion loot is still randomized even in the tutorial. That might have been an oversight. But yeah, so we found the key to Betty's office here, and now we are about to
Now the
acquire the
fun
safe
begins.
combination.
Remember that safe giving me the heebie-jeebies when you first came into the asylum?
And you can see that it's
That must be
crossed
the
off as you
combination.
complete. Now we have to go collect the mask, which, if you have observant eyes, you may recognize where this mask comes from.
Oh,
That's
I'm scared.
Mask.
it. Job's done.
Might look a little familiar to you.
It does, and I'm
So in
upset
here,
about it.
the story is that the Revenant, I guess, was a psychiatric patient at this hospital at some point, and he just went mad and transformed into the monster that you see, and got a hideous face which is covered by the mask, kind of a play on Phantom of the Opera almost. And Pablo is tasked with collecting that mask and escaping with it. So you can kind of see a little bit more of the city here. And we have some pretty cool wire components with some power lines, telephone poles.
This is normally the multiplayer map, as Phil was saying earlier. It's just been streamed in and edited slightly to be a tutorial,
There's
and
your
then we
flip-top
cut off
chariot.
sections to
Just
keep
need
you
some gas.
contained.
Mm.
Yep. So now we got to
Now
gas
you're
up the
cooking
car.
with gas.
Oh, this is another feature I'm going to talk about. Is we actually have random traffic, like cars driving by. And
That's
Nando
awesome.
also
It
added all the
really.
engine sounds with that. Yeah.
Yep.
It was a combination of some free
Good use of
assets
this.
actually on the Epic Marketplace.
And spline.
Snag 'em.
Spline system is really good.
Exactly, yeah. And they follow the spline component that kind of guides the path that they take.
Get on the horn and goose it, Pablo.
We fill up the gas tank, and then get rid of that. Don't need that no more. Just throw it away.
Get on the horn and goose it, Pablo.
So
Oh
when
my
I
God.
was writing the script for the tutorial, I literally Googled what was some 1950s figures of speech and phrases, and that was, get on the horn was like honking the horn. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. Goose it, I guess, means drive fast. So I used that one. And then once you drive off, you've successfully completed the tutorial. And even though it's rather simplistic, that is enough to go over all of the major systems for playing the game.
Yep. Just a basic
that was
tutorial,
awesome.
basically.
Yeah, but like you said before, it gives the context of basic functionality of the game. With I feel like that struck that balance that we were talking about, where it covered everything that you would need to know without being too presumptive and you not knowing anything at all. So well done. I think the vibes were immaculate for that one.
Definitely had to keep adding more modules of stuff because I would do the tutorial. I'm like, all right, it's done. And then someone would be like, how do you do this? I'm like, and then I have to go in and insert another section of tutorial. And then all my files are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so then I have 7A and then 7B. And then I just had to keep dropping more pieces of tutorial into the chain because I would forget something or someone would say, I don't understand this. I was like, well, I guess that's another part of the tutorial now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
the nature of tutorials.
Exactly. So, from a kind of a technical aspect, I jumped into the tutorial level here, and as you can see, we added these kind of trigger boxes, and this is what ties into when you enter this trigger box. that's when the dialogue text plays in the blue there, and that maps to a audio file that gets played. And then the green text is the green text that actually pops up. If it's in red, it's the one that gets removed. And so, like, as Manny was saying, playtesters would give feedback, we would have to add in another one of these trigger boxes and then reorder everything because it's all sequential. Like this trigger box, if I can click it, references this trigger box. So if you had one in the middle, you had to like reorder them.
I do have a
And
question
the
when
trigger
it comes
boxes are-
to.
Sure.
Sorry, just super quick. When it comes to like the triggers and such for the tutorial specifically there, because obviously if you just sprint down the hallway, then you're going to be blasting through every single box there. Is there any kind of accommodation for that, or is it with the hope that players will behave and take the time to listen through the full prompting?
You know, unfortunately, I think they just kind of all queue up and play at the same time. So we'll do exactly that.
The flashlight is down the hall.
Yes.
But my office is locked.
I mean, you can read it fast enough.
You're now a certified tester. Yeah, something we could add is a queue system, or maybe if a variable that holds the currently playing dialogue, and if the ones already exist, stop it and then fade into the new one. That's definitely a good thing to add. So thank you. We'll take note of that.
This is what I'm here for, to cause chaos. So happy to help.
That's what we love in testers. Like a lot of our testers do the exact same stuff. They'll do things that we didn't expect, or if they want to pick up an item, they won't just press E. They'll press E, and then suddenly they'll have 10 items.
Oh no!
Yeah, so that was a bug.
Let me just write down this hack.
Those link to audio. Those things link to the audio files for the AI voice you did.
Because it's also like it's playing the dialogue waves, which isn't actually like an audio file. It's like a proxy to the audio file, which I was busy building some other systems while like Phil prototyped this. So that's like, yeah, it's part of the reason why.
The prototype went to production.
Like audio. Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for walking through this. I think it's a great example of kind of getting a tutorial set up, getting that introduction to a game in place there. I realized that actually I've been playing a few games recently that I don't think even have tutorials. So I always appreciate having something that will walk me through a little bit of it, because I am definitely not. I play so many games, but I am not a good gamer, as most people watching can probably confirm, given how horribly I've messed up many of the gameplay on these streams before. So having that walkthrough is always good.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We didn't have it originally. We just jumped right into the multiplayer aspect of the game, which is the design of the actual game. And we got so many comments and feedback from the community saying, "Hey, how do I play? You guys should make a tutorial." So we definitely took that to heart, and did exactly that.
Very cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cat.
Well, I know with this, I love the cat. Cat's the fourth guest.
That's like, yeah. If you can hear that in the background.
But yeah, I would love to dive into some of these systems a little bit further as well, now that we've walked through the whole tutorial system here, if y'all are up for that.
Sure.
Well, while we're still adjacent to it, we want to go to sound, since we just talked about it.
Sure thing. Yeah. That would be pretty cool.
Let's do it.
can-
Very excited.
Nando, do you have a screen share that you can
Yeah, I have
our
editor.
our van man switch to?
The
Yeah,
fan.
let me just on the Discord, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just on the Discord share.
It really does sound ominous when we put it that way.
Nando has such tiny arms
Well-
right now.
It like cuts them off a bit.
Yeah.
Oh
You got little doodle
no!
arms.
While we're waiting to get that set up there, I actually have a couple questions I'm going to pull in from chat real quick. One of the first ones is, since you mentioned it sounds like y'all are fairly remote from one another right now, do you have any advice for teams that are trying to work entirely remotely with one another?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I picked that one. It's definitely keeping everybody on the same page. You need some way to like kind of track what everybody's working on, and we actually utilize Trello for that. If you want, I can actually share kind of our Trello board. And what we essentially do is we create these stories or tickets that kind of represent a task or a feature ability or something, and we kind of assign it to each individual person who it is relevant towards. So let me go ahead and share that. Yeah, if you don't mind.
There we go.
So we
we can pull
we've kind of come up
that
with
board
this
up in just a second.
system here. Sure. This works for us. It might not work for everybody, but essentially we have this like column of all these different tickets of things that we would like to get to, or maybe a bug or a feature idea. And like, for instance, one of our testers reported that when you switch a weapon from on a parented actor, such as like a bookshelf, the parent actor it recreates the second item, so it loses that attachment to the parent actor. So if that parent actor moves, the new item that spawned does not move with it. So in this particular scenario, you can see here, they had a sawed-off shotgun, and they switched it for this revolver. And once that swap happened, it was no longer attached to that bookshelf. So when the bookshelf moved, it did not move with the bookshelf. Just a small bug. And we kind of have like a ticket for kind of concepts and different things. And then what we'll do is we'll discuss either maybe every 2 weeks or once a month or on Discord what we kind of want to focus on. And what we'll do then is we have a column for each of us. We call it our on deck, if you will. And these represent those items from the backlog that we will kind of start within the next phase, usually every 2 weeks, or we're going to switch more to a monthly cycle now that we're going into a full release. And we have one for each of us, and we can like kind of tag each other if multiple people have to work on it. And then once we start, we'll move it into this like actively doing status. Once we're finished, we'll move it into review and verification. And then we'll have somebody who did not work on it, just so there's more than one eyes on a problem. We'll usually have like a tester review and verify that something did indeed work as intended. If it fails, it'll go into this failed verification state so that the original creator can fix it, or it'll go into the done column. And you can see we kind of have some stuff done for this upcoming release, like making sure you can kick people, like that was no longer working. You could get experience for using a dispenser, which I can show later. There was another bug where, like, when you go to the Shadow Realm as a monster, you could actually see the sky above because it was hiding the wrong meshes. So yeah, that's kind of our flow, if you will. It's kind of if you're familiar with the software development lifecycle called like Agile or Scrum, it's kind of a derivative of that. We've kind of massaged it into our own purposes to make it work for us. So this tool of Trello and Discord are the two main tools we use to kind of keep everybody on the same page with the same goal in mind in a distributed remote environment. Long-winded way of answering that question.
Yeah,
But it was good.
Just slightly related. It also depends on how far away you are time-wise, or what's it called? Time zone-wise. Because if you're in the same, if you're in the same time zone, it's not that hard these days with like just screen sharing and Zoom and all these stuff that you can really easily work together in Unreal Engine and even other online products, because you can share your screen and you can kind of like work with each other and point at each other's screens and stuff like that. The only time it gets really hard is when you're really big time distances away from each other. Like I'm 3 hours behind Phil, for example, and so a lot of times when he's starting his day at work, I'm still asleep because it's like for me it's 5 a.m. for him it's 8 a.m. and so working in
Right.
parallel becomes harder. So it depends on the time zone differences whether or not you can just call each other up and chat. And if you have if you can adjust your time frames, you can make sure that you work at the same time. You can work at the same time. It's really easy. Otherwise, you really have to lean on stuff like Trello, so that way you can work without having to immediately talk to somebody and work together one on one. So time zone is more important than distance, really.
We have it pretty good, I would
Yeah.
say. We're just like, I mean, it's just you that's like 3 hours. Like 3 hours, that's the main.
Shish. Okay, listen.
No,
I know. I'm the
No,
You forget,
no, you're
forget
good.
about we have a tester in New Zealand, so that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, he's
When I'm
he's
waking
online
up,
like
he's going
almost
to
any
bed.
time.
Yeah, when I'm waking up, he's going to bed. So I basically get up, feed my dog, and then I do some testing because that's the only time our tester from New Zealand is available.
Oh no. It's a forever trade-off is what that one is.
Yeah, it is difficult, but there are tools to help it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, looks like we've got some of the meta sound stuff pulled up here. Nando, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, no, I can drive if you want.
Wait, can you maybe like stop screen sharing and then maybe I have to screen share? Is that maybe it? Really?
Oh, I see it open. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it says
probably
I'm-
Phil.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe Dan switched to Nando's stream.
It seems like it's a loading thing. It might be easier, I think, if we have just Nando
yeah,
maybe
Phil-
just
Phil-
kind of
Phil, you
verbally
can do
driving
it.
through.
Yeah, sure thing. So, Phil, you can go to just search like the gun names, and then you can like filter by like the meta sound or something, and they should all like appear there. So essentially, so that's the thing. So when I came into the project, we like just switched to Unreal 5. Having to wait for various plugins to be compatible and stuff like that. And we had to use Unreal 5 because of all this new great features, meta sounds being a big one of them. Everything before that was sound cues, which in itself, like, they generally work pretty well for like just one shots of audio, and you could do some like audio parameter like setting to go more into detail, but it's still a bit limited what you can do like in real time. So that's where meta sounds really help, and that's where you see these like mega graphs. Which one is this? This is the this is the
M1911.
M1, yeah, M1911, the gun that was in the tutorial. So so that's what I was talking about. All the guns are made out of different layers. The like transient body mech, so it's literally like 4 layers for gunshot. Yeah, and then you can go into, if you can like go to the place in the editor, that little like, yeah, that one, and then you just like play back. See, so you have like essentially, so it's just like one low hit, and that's all the different like components that make up the gun sound, which then come together to make it like sound full. And that was thanks to Metasound for the ability to just import all those and make it performance wise. And if you go down as well, it has the tail switching, which is another pretty advanced setup. It's so you have the gunshot, but then you have the gun tail, and when you're outside, it's very reverberant. So you hear the very long decay of the gun as opposed to being indoors. So that was something that tied into the ambient like sound system actually. So like if you enter the asylum or the Hillview Manor or the Wakefield office, you hear the like ambient sounds, but it also has a call to the Metasound to set variables. So it says, hey, don't play the reverberant gun sound when you're inside. But dude, when you're outside, that's that outside, the outside bool input. So the nice thing about meta sounds, you also have the magazine ammo input, so you can get really detailed with stuff. The nice thing about meta sounds is kind of like similar to like the material graph, where you can have any sort of variable that comes from like your gameplay drive what you're like seeing in the material graph. It's essentially the same way. So this is a nice example how it's like that magazine ammo, the integer, and then the bool. They just change which sounds you're hearing. The magazine ammo, for example, when you're low on ammo, you hear the mechanical click of the gun, where when you're totally out of ammo, you don't hear anything. You just hear like the click of the gun trying to find the bullet, and that gradually fades in over the number of ammo you have the ammo you have left. So it's pretty.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very detailed system. And then
Yeah, definitely.
it all just mixes into the output. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things where I feel like there's so many parts of game development that could apply to this statement, but I think especially with audio, it's one of those things where if it's running masterfully, then you almost don't notice it because it's just exactly as it should be.
Yeah, that's like
and having all of those little
thing.
details is yeah.
Oh yeah, we have just all the old
oh, this is where we started from.
Yeah.
With the cues.
Each thing is just a
It was
weapon.
basically just a random
play this cue.
Yeah.
Pick a random cue.
It's come a long way.
Well, and stuff like that. Those are
cooler.
very subtle sound effects that give you information when you're playing. Like as the gun changes sound as you run out of ammo. That is a tiny detail, but it feels so great when you play. And only if you know how to use this kind of layering.
Yeah, and then like it's really, it's about also understanding as like a technical audio designer what gameplay features like will change the audio. So you guys maybe noticed that magazine ammo, it doesn't play when you're using the revolver because the revolver doesn't have the magazine. It doesn't have that like click.
Right.
It just shoots around. So you don't have any idea of like, am I almost out of ammo because you can hear the magazine. So that detail, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many tiny little pieces that really come together to make a believable experience there for that. And that's just for one weapon.
And that's just one. And then I also had to like design all the assets and stuff. So it was like a multi-month process. But Phil, if you can go back to the fire sound, just the meta sound. No, the actual asset and the tab. Yeah. Just that's fine. So if you go down to that bool value all the way at the bottom, you can actually, just that outside, press it. No, the outside value, the bool one.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can go on the left, that default value, change it to true. Yeah, and now you can like play. If you play, it's going to sound the outside. And you can just press space to play. You could hear the long tail now. So that's a nice thing with these meta sounds. You can like debug and design it in the actual editor. You don't have to like constantly go into play mode. So that's a major feature about Unreal 5. I guess audio is generally overlooked for certain things, but this is something that's really nice. Easier to use, works well, and makes the game sound even better. Just being able to like test that. Yeah.
I will pass that along to Aaron McLaren. I'm sure he would be happy to hear.
Very good.
Have any other meta assets you want to review? There's a bunch you did, like for drawers and doors. You did all of those.
Bit. Yeah, maybe look at the doors in drawers 1. Yeah, maybe
Doors
open
and
that-
drawers. That's a tongue twister if there ever was one.
Doors.
Oh, that's the one. This is like the sequence.
This is metal drawer. Metal drawer.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. The nice thing about just like having this like concatenation of just sounds, you can have sounds for every little thing. So when the drawer, you open the drawer, you hear the sliding sound, but when it reaches the end of the rail of the drawer and it's maximum open, you hear that like click sound. And the same thing for when you're closing it. The drawer is closing and then it like click, fully closed. And that's what that is. And then again, it's checking whether it's like open or close. Another thing that would actually be, Phil, if you can open up like investigator base damage, just search base damage. That really showcases the powerful like meta sound inside meta sound sort of setup.
Is there
Yeah.
soundception?
Meta soundception, yes.
Yeah. So this is this is for when the investigators get hurt, but it's also like it doubles as something else. It's kind of like the impact sound as well. So that's a nice thing. You really you can have these sounds play just from like one asset. So just to explain, the investigators, they can get hurt in multiple ways. You know, melee hits, gunshots, poisonous mushrooms that happen sometimes as well. And then
Oh no.
Yeah.
Classic fall damage.
and fall damage. There's like a ton of things, and you know the audio, different audio for every single one. But I'm not going to make like separate audio asset for each one for each investigator. So you get these kind of almost like, you know, it's kind of like, well, not necessarily like parent-child relation, but it's like the flow relation of one sound and then all these like variables. You know, there's several variables here. On play, we check if the damage was by projectile, which is guns, or melee, but there's also neither, which just will go straight out. And then, yeah, for projectile, you're playing the hit sound, projectile hit sound, but also like a kind of like it's kind of like a bullet hit sound, and the melee is like a deep like punch sound that goes along with the scream sound. So Phil, you can open up just open up a like damaged sound, just like any investigator damaged sound, really. Let me see.
Oh,
This is Avery.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So this really illustrates it. This is like Avery's damage sound. It goes, and then we check if the damage was like gas, because each investigator, they cough. But then they cough, but you need to like the cough needs to sound like their voice, of course. So that's personalized, which is per meta sound asset. So then if the damage isn't gas from the mushrooms, it plays the vocal sounds. That's the play vox sounds in the middle. So it does that. In addition to playing if right below that, meta sound base damage. So it plays the base damage plus the voice. So if you double click on base damage, it just brings you right to what we were just looking at. So it's like graphs inside graphs sort of thing. So if you go back to Avery damaged, it plays both the voice and the damage type. So yeah, extra, and then you can debug and set which damage types with those 3 bool values. If like melee is true, if melee is true but the rest are false, they should all be false. So that one, if you just press, you hear the punch and the scream, and then you set. So that's the thing about playing it in gameplay. You need to check what the damage type was, and then set the correct ones accordingly. That's the bullet impact sound. So it's the detail that you can like test in editor as well, and it sounds pretty good. Yeah. So that's kind of like an insight into the technical audio design process from the meta sounds.
Yeah.
It's
I'm assuming that
exponentially
one's the
better than
motion.
when we did it.
Yes.
Yes.
This is awesome.
And
Yeah,
what's-
the amount of
and this is
detail work
just-
is insane.
And this is like just the audio component. Like there's also what Manny and I kind of tie into all that is the animations, like
Yeah.
lighting, any particles or Niagara effects. It all ties together. So like what we'll end up doing is instead of like having to load the full level, we'll have these like little tiny test levels to kind of just put all of the things together to demonstrate. Like for instance, we'll have a level of just like some doors and drawers to be able to test that part of the game, and it ties into kind of the meta sounds that Nando was talking about. Is the kind of the animation state machine as well. So in addition to kind of all of the audio aspects, is like from an animation perspective, like for these doors and drawers, something we'll do is we'll actually take into account the height of the object. Well, I have to lower them down a little bit.
You didn't take account of the height of this.
Not
System
in the
tried.
level. But like, so you can see he kind of like reaches a little bit lower to close that one versus this one up here. It's a little bit higher. The animation.
Very cool.
And it kind of interpolates between the height of the floor to the middle of the asset being moved to, I think, his shoulder or his head. And I don't have any doors. I can just add one, but like it ties into a lot of the animations that we have. Like I wouldn't have imagined this, but there are so many ways you can open a door. So, like for instance, you can have a same side grab where the side that the doorknob is on the side. So if you're a right-handed character, a same side grab would be you grab it with your right hand. But that would be a different animation to where if you're a left-handed character, you actually grab the doorknob on the right side, but with your left hand. And then you have to swap all of those if you go to the other side of the door. So here he's punching. He actually,
That's how I
he's
open
right-handed.
doors.
He actually punch him open. You actually reach across with his right hand because he's right-handed. But if you go to the other side, it'll be a same side grab, or he'll use his left hand. But if he has a
it's all
gun,
messed up.
his
All confused.
but now we also take into account, like for instance, if what are in their hand. Like now he will use his left hand always to open a door, kind of as he was, but if he has, say, spell, have him hold a torch here. Oh no, that's always his right hand. What's in his left hand? Is it jerry can?
Jerry cans
So,
in the left hand, yeah. Oh, Jerry wrong. Yeah.
All right. So if he holds onto a jerry can, he's holding onto his left hand. So that means his right hand is free. So he'll use the right hand to open the door, and his right hand to close the door, because his left hand is not well. That one.
Oh, he just left-handed. Everything is wrong.
I went over that last one.
I've never seen him do that in the actual game. It's just when you're trying to show them how it works, it's not going to do it.
And then we also
Bucket.
have a different one. Well, what happens? What happens when both hands are full? Well, how's he supposed to open a door? Right? Well, obviously, he kicks it.
Yes. Yes.
And we'll ignore
That's what I
this
was
one.
hoping
We're
for.
closing it. Kick it open. So you wouldn't think, like, just opening a door, you think, oh, you just opened the door. Well, right there, you probably saw at least 20 different animations. And then you have to, like, know, okay, which side of the door I'm on? Which is the doorknob on the left or the right side? Is that the same side or left side? Or same side or opposite side? Is the door opening towards me or away from me? Like, all of these states, you don't even think about it until you actually get into the details of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have? I'm assuming you do, since you mentioned it. But do some of the characters have like one is right-handed, one is left-handed, and those smaller, distinct
think they
things
actually
about them
have that.
individually?
I don't think so.
So they have different voices, but no, they don't have different hand dominance. They're all right hand dominant. That is something that
Honestly,
we could change.
good. I was about to be like, that is so much work. Oh my god.
Well, luckily, Unreal Engine lets you mirror animation, so it wouldn't be that hard. We just have to set up a thing where
This is
you
true.
play one character is set to mirrored, you know, and they're left-handed.
There you go. Yeah, that is.
I mean, that's after
It
Phil
really
set
does
everything
give
up
me the
already.
tool.
You don't just do that for nothing.
What do you
Right.
mean? I can't just open the level and this is here?
Yeah, you should. I'll show you the animation blueprint from just that stuff. Right. So we have, I think, a whole animation graph just for what we call articulators, which is doors and drawers. So we have a section for drawers, a section for doors, and a section for what we call lids, which is like top of a treasure chest, or I guess the trunk car.
Car
Then
trunk.
we have car trunk. We have a blend space, which kind of handles all the height or the sides. So we have like your left-handed open, you have your right-handed open, you have it when the object is high, you have it when the object is low, and all the blends between. Then you have if it's a double door, or if it's just a single door. And that's just cabinet doors. And that's just opening. We have the same thing duplicated for its closing,
Right.
which I guess is just the animation in reverse. Then there's lid. That's different. We have like your standard locomotion. Yeah, it's just all these different like layers on top of each other. Like we have a base pose when you're like unarmed. We have a different state machine based on like if you have a revolver, a pistol with a magazine. Like we have two different types of shotguns. We have a breech shotgun versus a pump shotgun, and the way those not only does the gameplay change in terms of like the reloads and all of that. It's like a breech shotgun. It's the double barrel shotgun. I'll bring that up. The mesh. So the double barrel shotgun, and this cracks open, and you can load in the two shotgun shells. But we have like separate animations for that versus a pump shotgun where you like ratchet the pump or whatever it's called. And then we also added like IK, so like there's a virtual bone on this rail here, I think. We'll actually use IK on the arms. So like when this slides up and down from the animation, it's actually tied to the character. The character's like hand socket, so the hand will slide along it as well. So yeah, and these are just all the like little things that we've added like over the years now at this point. Like somebody will make a suggestion, be like, oh, this doesn't look so good, or hey, why don't you try this? And we'll just look into it. And it's kind of funny seeing how that changed over the years.
And this is an example of design documents helping you, because early on we could have been like, well, we're only going to use magazine type pistols, and then we wouldn't have had to worry about doing revolver reloads and stuff. And so if early on, if you're looking at all this and you think it's like way too many layers, when you design your game, you can design it to limit the amount of layers that you need to do. We did not do that. We had no limits, and so we've just had rolling creep. What is it called? Development creep, because we're like, oh well, our guys have revolvers. Oh well, Yeah, with scope creep for sure. Because we can add another gun, we can add another type of this or that or the other, and then when you do that, like, oh, but we don't have a system for a pump shotgun. How do you do an animation for a pump shotgun? And then now we got to figure out how do we add in a whole another state machine or whatever or animation section for the pump shotgun. Then we had to figure out IK for the hand so that he racks it. And so like layer upon layer of things that you can either take on for all the details you want to do, or you can keep them out of your development cycle by when you plan ahead deciding what goes in and what doesn't ahead of time. That way people like your coder like Phil here from the beginning can design all these systems from how they're going to be needed. Whereas if you just are constantly rolling development, a lot of these things are built on top of each other in, sediment layers, and then it gets really hard. No, I don't think anybody except Phil at this point could make major changes to our game without breaking it, because he's the one who knows from like the base level how these things all glom together. So design your games in advance before you develop anything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys
Or
are
get
screwed
you
if
a
I get hit by a bus.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is fascinating. Yeah, I mean, even in chat, I'm seeing someone saying that this is fascinating, because it is. There's a lot of very small detail work. I think it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, there's monsters, and we have to make the monster effects, and it's the combat, and it's all this crazy stuff. It's like, but there's also doors, and how do you open them, and how does it sound when you open the door? Yeah,
right.
To really actually get you immersed in that world.
Yeah, but monsters are so much more fun to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't even show any monster gameplay.
fun.
Maybe we should show some of that.
Yeah, those doors were pretty scary enough.
The doors were pretty terrifying.
I mean, the kick is startling, so I get it.
Now, let me load up in.
You do have the minion
world
test
here
level
on
where all the
the
little
monster.
minions come and try and kill you. Oh yeah.
That's true.
Can we play as our monsters with not multiplayer anymore? We used to be able to, but I don't know if you can anymore.
We can. In the editor, we can. There's an override for that.
Oh. Okay, good.
So I think it's on Vince now. I'll actually change it to.
It might be
one of the monsters. Yeah, you can change your starting character. And this is something we kind of learned from experience too, is the game that you kind of ship is a little bit different than the game you kind of test in. So there are tons of little like flags, or like true and false, for if it's a playing in the editor mode versus a shipping build. Just like giving you additional functionality or like access to cheats, or like one of the things that we found like just running around testing is that it took forever to get anywhere. Like say you start at the beginning of the level and you want to test like an item at the end of the level. Well, so that means you change one little thing to run all the way to the end of the level. So we ended up coding teleportation in the game, but it's a cheat. So that way, like and the only reason that exists is for testing purposes. So like if you need to get from the start of the level to when you start playing to where the item is, you can just teleport there in a fraction of a second. And we actually utilize our gameplay map in order to do that. So you open up the map and you click on the map there, and it'll just teleport you there. But that only happens in the editor, not when you actually have a shipping build.
Mm.
It made me realize why all those cheats were in all those old video games.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like all the cheats that exactly as Manny said, all the cheats that exist in games is probably to help a developer out at some point.
Probably, yeah. Also the era of shipping the whole engine with the game as well.
Oh.
Yep.
Ooh.
So it's a bit laggy.
Ooh.
Again, yeah, it's
a scary sound
in
the entrance there.
Yeah, you can thank Nando for that as well. But yeah, so this is playing as the Wraith Monster. So the Wraith Monster actually exists in what we call the Shadow Realm. So he cannot see any doors. He cannot see any players in the Shadow Realm. He only can see traps. And when traps go off, as kind of demonstrated in the tutorial, they'll turn red and have that little ping icon they can see through the map. And they have this energy bar here in the left, and the Wraith monster, when he sees a trap go off, he has to go near the trap, and he turns physical, but he only has a limited amount of energy. And when he's physical, that's when he can actually attack. If the animation loads, there we go.
Wow.
And then when you
So
run out of
delayed in
energy,
the editor.
yeah, maybe I should switch over to a production build. But you can see that when his energy went to 0, he got
first time it's slow.
Yeah,
when it loads the first time it's
he
slow.
got kicked back to the he gets kicked back to the Shadow Realm until he rebuilds his energy, and that's kind of the gameplay style that we had initially intended, at least for the first monster, the Wraith monster. Is being partially physical, partial ethereal. It's kind of like this Marco Polo game where you have to like lay traps, and when an investigator runs by, it'll turn red, and that's when you know, oh, there's an investigator here, because you can't see them.
Yeah, you can't see anything that
Right.
moves, so that way you can't follow them around. You can't see their doors open or anything like that. So you have to follow that. I think you can hear sounds. No, you can't hear sounds. That's wrong. You can hear the sounds of
No,
the
you
traps.
cannot hear any investigator sound. You can hear the traps. Yes. You cannot hear doors. You cannot hear gunshots. You cannot hear VoIP. You cannot hear footsteps. And then another thing that we noticed, like from gameplay, is going back to the doors. Is in the Shadow Realm, you could see originally that the doors were opening, so you knew that there was a player there. So we ended up having to hide all of the doors for the Wraith when he's in the Shadow Realm, and then they reappear when he's physical. So that way, in the Shadow Realm, the Wraith has no idea if a door is open or closed or anything. It also makes it a little bit
the
easier
tricky
to
thing is to
navigate.
make it so it happens for him and not the other players.
Yeah.
That's always our problem.
So this leads into another huge, if not the largest lesson in game development, especially your first one, is the additional complexity when it comes to multiplayer game. I definitely recommend, if you're just starting out, do a single player game. The management of like replication state, like we had in the first year at least, we had bugs on and off of maybe even longer than that of like we would see like an investigator running by, but you would just see his hat because we forgot to mark his hat as like one of the items that disappeared with the Shadow Realm. Or like you could see the visual effects whenever they fire a gun, just kind of floating in the air there. Or
yeah, I remember
like,
when I was
if
like
the
adding the audio, like it sounded good for like one player, like locally, but then it tested multiplayer and it sounded completely different. Stuff wasn't playing, or stuff that shouldn't have been playing was playing. But it's everything, yeah.
Yeah, multiplayer adds so much complexity. But when you finally get it working, it's awesome. So like here, as an example, going back to like adding cheats, this is our like player map, but we added the cheat that you can actually click on it in the editor and you can get teleported to where you are. It just helps like testing things a lot faster. So, like another little feature in the game is that as the Wraith, you can actually go into the Wraith crypt and you can sleep in your sarcophagus, and a little animation starts. You go sleeping in the crypt, and you actually get overcharged energy. So if you look at the bottom left, your energy is going beyond the maximum. So now you'll have more energy to attack the players with. But it takes time inside the crypt. And then you can come out. Go. And now I have extra energy. And I can save it by going back into the Shadow Realm and hunt players, so that now when I appear, I'll have a lot more energy to attack with. And I can stay physical longer.
Ooh, spooky. I love that.
That's my favorite monster, but a lot of players are like, I don't understand. We probably need a tutorial for them for this monster.
For the monsters, yeah.
I've joined games of play because I'll just join random lobbies when I see them on, and there'll be someone who's the Wraith and he'll never appear the whole match, and then he's like, I don't know how to, I don't see you guys. Where are you guys? I'm like, I haven't explained this to you. I don't know why I thought you would know how this works. So then I'd be like, press F, and then they'll appear and they'll be like, oh, and then suddenly they're all they'll start killing everyone, and I'm like, yeah, that's all you need to know. And so we have tutorial things that are pop-ups, but people don't read. Why won't people read the pop-up? It tells you. And then so now I need to make a whole another tutorial for someone to watch instead.
Mm.
Definitely lesson learned. People do not read.
They don't read.
But hey, you gotta account for that. It has to be either really intuitive. You have to have little indicators or audio cues, something. Or sorry, audio meta sound.
Or all of them if you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we basically did.
Yeah.
Started doing all
And that's
of it.
just the iterative trial and error. Like that little notification that you can transition into the physical realm, because it's not an intuitive behavior, just adding that little message. You probably got that from a tester, a year or so into actual development.
Yep.
Right. Very interesting. That's very interesting. Well, we have about. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What can we see here? Let me know.
Oh, I was showing the little pop-up message that pops up in the bottom of the right. Says, "Do you have enough energy to transition realms? Press F when ready." That shows only the very first time you play as the Wraith when you have a full bar of energy, just to teach them. Once you transition to the physical realm, we don't show that message again. Just a small little thing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I can see them. They see F, they hit F, prompt goes away, and then they forget about it. Probably.
Yep.
Hopefully they
but they've
connected
done
it.
the action. They've done the action, so they can tie that together because they did it.
Yes. I love that. Player psychology is a topic I could speak on forever. It's so interesting to me.
Whole another layer of game dev.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we have about 20-ish minutes left for the show today. I was wondering if y'all would be fine with taking a little bit of that time to go through some of the questions we've collected throughout the show so far.
Yeah, of course.
For a quick little Q&A. Awesome. The first question that we've got here, they're wondering, what made you decide to go with this current art direction? And was the project always intended to look like this from the start? Like era and design and things like that.
So I am obviously the one who has to answer this. When it started off, like I said, it was a project in school with a bunch of art majors doing game art design, and so they all wanted to show off their abilities for their final. And so everyone's like, yeah, we got to do photorealistic because we want to make our stuff look super awesome, and therefore, put it in my portfolio and I'll get a job and all this stuff. So everyone wanted to do like the best thing they could do, and they all were trying to think of like a time period, and it started off as like 1700s or something. I don't remember why they decided that. I was an artist also, but I'm like level and hard surface, so I wasn't worried about characters or costumes or anything. I was just like, oh, I gotta make guns and rocks. And they decided to go with that. So we made some assets, but it was basically just like a house, like the mansion idea is what we were going for, because everyone played Resident Evil and they wanted to do a big mansion, and everyone was obsessed with it. So they were working on that. I was making rocks and trees and lever action revolvers or guns and stuff. And when they all kind of fell off, it was left with me and the guy who made the monster here, Andres. And he was like, well, no one does post-war investigator era. And I was like, okay, well, we could do that to make it more unique. And at the time, there wasn't a bunch of these horror games where you play against other players. The one that we had played and we liked was a game called Damned. I don't remember the company that made it, and it was a great little game, but it was buggy and they never really got it all the way working. And we're like, well, let's do some of the stuff we liked from Damned and make it work. And while we were developing this, other games like Dead by Daylight and stuff came out. But we chose the post-war era because most games are just not really in that era. And Andres wanted to he was the character modeler, and he wanted to make investigators with like trench coats and hats. So he kind of chose the time period. And then we already had a whole bunch of photorealistic assets because of all the other people who had started working with us who no longer were in the project. And we were like, well, we don't really want to remake all of these assets with just two people, because at the beginning it was just me and him left for like almost a year and a half of development before Phil joined us. And then that's three people. Only two of us are artists, and that's another thing you have to worry about is, can you produce? What's your production bandwidth. And to be honest, we couldn't produce photorealism on 2 people for a game like this just ourselves. It's a terrible idea. We should have gone with something stylized that I could have made, a million different rocks faster. Or he did the walls for the mansion, and he made like 17 different sets. And once we were working with Phil, and we're like, okay, here are the sizes of doorways and all this stuff, he would just make uh like for example, here in the stone that he's looking at, he would make sets of walls. So every wall piece is like, I don't remember, 500 units or something. And then there's half walls, and then doorways, and then doors with windows. And then he would make a set of basement set. And then he would make nice paneled wood, and then he'd make wallpaper and so forth. I think there was like 8 different sets that he made quickly, because once he had them set up, it's fast. And then I would go in and build all the levels of all these pieces, and I'd be like, oh, we don't have a corner, and so he'd make a corner. But a lot of these chairs and tables and stuff like that, we either found or got off of a free asset pack or stuff like that. Like half the stuff in here we modeled, and then a whole of other stuff we had to go and buy, because there's 2 of us, 2 artists trying to make all of this stuff. And if you're making a game, think about what your production bandwidth. We should not, with 2 people, have tried to make a photorealistic game, but that's the atmosphere that people were talking about, and stuff that we wanted to go with for a horror game, because we were making a horror game, and we were making a horror game with like 15, 20 people who were all going to help us make everything. They all fell off, and in reality, we should have just started from scratch and made a whole nother project and started the whole development thing like we were saying, but we didn't at the time because we didn't know any better. We're like, it's fine, we'll just keep making stuff. And as years of development went by, we're like, wow, we've bit off more than we really should have tried to chew here. So we really do like the style, and all the artists wanted to push their abilities on what they could do. And I would just recommend, if you're starting to do development, keep that in mind when you make these decisions during design. We didn't have a design stage. That's our problem. We just started making stuff. A whole bunch of artists who had no idea what it was going to take just started making things. And all of us, were pretty skilled, and we could all make cool stuff, but we didn't think about ahead of time how it was going to be designed, how long it was going to take for us to make this. And then we only had one map to start, which was just this mansion, and this is the one that we like really all, did storyboarding and stuff, that we were going to have a main hall and a master bedroom. But then after that, it was just me making levels, and so I had to go make other levels with rocks and trees and all that kind of stuff, and it was definitely
Right.
difficult. But we really do love the art style, and I'm happy with the results. But if I was starting another game with just 2 people, I would definitely not do that. And even if you do have a team of artists, you really need to talk to them and be like, what is our actual output here? Like, how fast is it going to make for you to make a bunch of plants, potted plants? Because you don't think about it, but someone spends like 4 hours making a potted plant, and you don't want to just have the same potted plant repeated all over the game a million times. So how many potted plants are you going to make? And that's just a potted plant, not a bottle on the table or a chair or all the things you need. I don't know if that exactly answered the question, but
I will definitely take the time to plug the Epic Marketplace for acquiring pre-made assets, especially for small things that are not the main focus of the game, just like props and stuff like that. It's incredible the amount of things that we picked up over the years that really helped us out.
And just a small note on that: you still need artists, though. If you're just a developer, you can use them, but there are a lot of times where you get an asset and it can't really do what you were hoping it could do. Like, we have a safe that we got off of somewhere here, and I had to take it into Blender. I think I had at that time, not 3ds Max anymore, and disassemble it into its component parts so that we could have a moving door and the spinning thing and all that stuff. So a lot of assets are not actually fit for use, and so just because you can buy an asset doesn't mean you can use it. Characters, there's so many things where they might not be ready for you to use. So the marketplace is amazing, and there's a lot of people who make perfectly usable straight drop-in stuff. But if you don't know how to use it, and if you can't do edits, or like Phil was saying with the skeleton, we had that character we couldn't really use because we couldn't edit the skeleton, and Andres was off doing a different project. And so if you download a character off the Unreal Engine and it's not using the skeleton all your animations are using, I hope you know how to target animations and everything, which is a thing Unreal it makes it super easy now, because they put it in, I think in Unreal Engine 5 you can just map skeletons on much easier. But just there's so many good assets out there, and there's so many artists you can tap into, but you can't necessarily just take an asset off the asset store and use it. That's a warning that we didn't know at the time, and we got random stuff, and they're like, oh, I can't use this. I actually shouldn't have bought this or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great little technical detail. Like as Manny was saying, like this is how the asset came from the store. It was just a single static mesh, but we had to have this door open. So Manny actually had to split it up into separate meshes, where he essentially detached the door. So now the door is separated from the rest of the safe. And then, so that's the kind of the art aspect of it. And then he kind of hands that off to me. And I kind of, at that time, I had already built all of the other doors. So I just had to kind of plug and play that into the door system I had designed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff, even when it's already made for you. So, like,
Yeah.
I kind of roll my eyes when people sometimes like to throw around the term like an asset flip. That's harder than you think, even flipping assets.
Yeah, it is not a simple matter of just a couple clicks. There's a lot that has to go into making sure that it actually works for your project, for sure.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. The next question that we've got here is, what was the biggest multiplayer or networking challenge that you'd had?
There's so many.
All of them.
Probably the one that we kind of touched on a little bit was the visibilities of the shadow realm for the wraith, making sure that state replicated regardless of for host or client. Another big one was firing of weapons as well as attachment of weapons. So, like originally, we just had child actors on the actual blueprint of the character, and those child actors were all the different guns. And we found that actually introduced a lot of overhead in terms of the amount of like data that had to be sent across the network, and it became quite laggy, honestly. So then we had to spend a bunch of time how to dynamically spawn in child actors and then attach them to the character. And then from that, I'm still playing as the Wendigo now. I'll show like the weapons.
You can't carry guns, unfortunately.
Aw, that's a shame. Can't be a monster with a gun.
No, unfortunately. Although all the people are monsters, so we
Well,
have
So like for instance, right now
we have duels
yeah,
where we
there are
shoot
no
each other.
child
It's
actors.
fun.
Yeah, he goes to one end of the dueling range, and these are now being spawned on the character dynamically instead of all existing at the same time. And then having that
Right.
child actor actually replicate to all of the clients is a lot of that is handled by Unreal Engine, but there's still a lot of quirks to it, especially making sure you replicate all of the proper variables, like the ammo, the state of the gun. Like we had a bug one time where you could reload only if you were the host, because the ammo was not replicated properly to all the clients. And
Or
so,
when you
yeah,
reloaded,
just-
everyone reloaded.
and that was a fun one too. But yeah, this is definitely why this is the basis of why we recommend for your first game definitely doing single player.
Also,
Yeah.
all of the physics when you throw the guns has to replicate. That one was really hard.
Yeah. So on that one in particular, is actually not replicated. It's just turning the weapon is spawned, and then on each local client, physics is enabled, and then when it hits the ground, it starts a timer, and when the gun stops moving beyond a certain amount, it is then replicated out. Hey, turn off physics, and then once physics is turned off, whatever the server says is the location of the gun, that is the location. So as I'm playing here, it doesn't really matter as much. But if you can have two clients, and on the server, the gun goes here, but let's say the physics happened slightly different on the client, and the gun ended up over here. Well, in the actual game, which is the server, the gun is here, but on the client, the gun is here. So a thing we had to handle was, we had to essentially teleport the gun from here to here. But then that looked terrible, so we had to do it over a interpolated timeline so that it kind of like slides over. It looks not as good, but it's better than when you go here to try to pick up the gun you just dropped as the client. There is no gun there because on the server it's over here. So on the client it interpolates over here, so now you know actually where the gun is and you can interact with it because it's same as the server. That's just another small detail you don't realize until the problem reveals itself in front of you.
Yeah. Oh. Networking. It's
Yes.
always fun.
And then we always have we always have a suicide rate on all of our test levels, just for fun.
Unrelated to the question. It's just that.
Unrelated to the question. I just saw it and I just got excited. So.
2 jumps. 2 jumps is all it takes. Very, very wonderful. Thank you for going through that. Let's see here. Next question that we had. Would you say that most of the game is built using blueprints, or did you also utilize any C++ when making the mechanics?
So it's interesting. I'm a software engineer by trade. I know mostly Java and C#. I had not had much experience in C++. I did want to learn it, but I did start using blueprints with this project when I came on because Manny and the other developer at the time, they used blueprints, and I kind of built upon that, and I actually really liked it. Even though I'm like a software engineer by trade and I work in IDEs in a code-based environments, I don't know, just there's something aesthetically pleasing about the blueprints and all the blueprint crafts and stuff. And I've gotten quite complex with multiple layers and blueprint libraries. Like, just for example, this is our main. I will show the main one. This is our main loop in order to load in the game. So, like, I try to like apply the same concepts of good like design using like functions and labeling things correctly and organizing stuff and adding comments. But even then, it's still hard to kind of keep track of things. But to more directly answer the question, it's about 95% of the game is blueprints. There is that 5% in C++. There are a few things that are not exposed to the blueprint level. You have to do it in C++, and a few functions that I had to write in C++, and that's the route I had to go. But if it was able to be done in blueprints, I kind of went for more blueprint.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, oh man, there are so many good questions. I think the last one that I'm going to have for all of you, and I figure we can go through, have each of you answer it one at a time because I'm curious. But if you had to take everything that you've done and learned through the process of making this project so far and working in your team and distill it down into one piece of advice that you would like to give to either other indie developers or just any other developers in general, what would that be? It's a big question. I know it is. So if you need a second, feel free to take it.
So I'll try not to repeat some of the lessons learned previously, so I'll do a new one. Another one would be the biggest one that I haven't already mentioned, I would say, is getting your game and level in front of people as soon as possible, as soon as it's playable. Don't wait for it to be done. Don't wait for it to be polished. And if possible, get it in front of people who are not your friends and family. Try to get it in front of an online friend or a stranger, even if you can, because they'll give you the real honest feedback where, my family tends to be a little too nice, or be like, oh yeah, it looks great, and it's actually quite janky. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
It's a very good one, yeah. They mean well, but yeah, sometimes you need the brutal
Exactly.
honesty to really improve.
Yeah,
For me-
when we first went into. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can finish what you were saying, and then I'll go after.
Oh yeah, on the brutal honesty, when we first went into early access, we did not have a whole lot of traction initially, and I kind of made a Reddit post on the game dev subreddit, kind of inquiring, hey, like, what's wrong? You know, I did all of this. I'm working on this game for 2 years at that point. Why isn't nobody liking it? And boy, it ended up going viral. And there were YouTube videos made about it. There were so many like commentary made about it. I think it had 1,000+ comments. It was the largest like internet post I've ever had in my life, and a lot of the people were brutally honest. Getting rid of the negative people aside, just the people who gave honest, true feedback of, hey, you should fix this, including like the sounds. It sounds like bubble wrap. It looks kind of like janky. The lighting doesn't look good. It looks like an asset flip. Stuff like that. Kind of distilling the action items out of the negativity ended up becoming a positive, and from that Reddit post, we were actually able to improve a lot of things. And small little tangent, and then I'll give it back to Nando. Is from that Reddit post, we actually had a trailer artist reach out to us and offer to make us that trailer that you saw at the beginning of the stream. Wonderful guy. I'll paste his information if you want to share it. But he's and he gave it to us for free, just because he really liked our game.
So yeah, and actually, what I was about to say, it literally just ties into what Phil just mentioned. It's my piece of advice is to ask questions, especially like from a developer, like asking questions online to just, the Reddit game dev community, but also to like teammates stuff. So I didn't mention, I joined this project in like November of 2022. So like just over a year ago, because I met NonNobis Games at Unreal Fest 2022. And so I joined, and then this project was huge. I never worked on something like that before, and I tried to figure stuff out by myself for a while. And just a few months after that, when I started really working like every day on it, there was so much stuff that I didn't understand. It's like that kind of like paradox where it's the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And honestly, it's still true today. I've been working on this, Dirge so much, but there's still stuff I have no idea about. And having to ask Phil and Manny questions about it. How does this work? Like almost like it feels like I'm being a bit like annoying with my questions, but then I'm like, okay, I legitimately don't understand this like at all. And I legitimately don't understand.
No, we love the questions. We love the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't understand a ton of things. So I'm going to ask all these, and my like information is like growing exponentially by just having this hands-on experience, asking, my teammates, but also, ask people online for questions, stuff like that. And then people will reach out to like help and stuff like that. And you learn so much doing the work, infinitely more than like YouTube tutorial or maybe like a class or a lecture or something. It's really tough, but you learn a lot, and you learn it well so that it sticks with you by, just asking. Like, just ask. Don't be afraid to ask. You just need the information. Yeah. That was my takeaway. Yeah.
Definitely, that's a great one.
Definitely plug the developer community on the Epic forums as well.
Yeah, on Real Source. That's really nice.
Yes, absolutely. What about you, Manny? Anything that you want to let the people know?
Well, the main thing ties into the other things I was saying, where you plan your game, like all they're saying, like Phil saying and Nando's saying, you just ask questions, plan your game, and also consider the scale of what you're taking on when you first start. Because if you're doing your first game, do something small. And when I say that, it doesn't matter if if it's your dream game, but make something that you can do in like 6 months or a year. Don't spend like we did. I mean, don't get me wrong, our game's doing great, we love it, but don't spend 6 years developing one project that you're learning everything on, because like Nando was saying, you learn so much when you work on it. So decide to make, I don't know, even if no one ever sees it, go get the Unreal Engine and make a Mario game, like just copy Mario and figure out how to do it. And if you don't want to do that and you want it to be productive, come up with something simple like that, like an infinite runner or whatever, something that you think that you can work on, you can do the stuff you need to do in a small amount of time, small air quotes, because everything's going to take you a long time, but give yourself like 6 months or a year to make a game and get it out in front of people. And it might be the most ridiculous thing that just has cubes flying through something or whatever. It doesn't matter, but you'll learn so much from it, and you'll be like, oh, this thing that I didn't work out. My next game will be better. We started because like I said, we were a bunch of artists. We're like, we'll just make this amazing game, our dream game right now. And it's so much that you're taking on that it also then takes, you'll get this, what is it called? You'll lose focus, or you'll start going off and adding random things or whatever, and you'll learn all the stuff, and at the end you'll be like, oh well, I spent all this time, I learned all this stuff, but I didn't end up making what I was trying to make. So just start small when you start. It depends on how many people you have. If you're someone watching this, you've got a team of like 30 people. Maybe you have it now, but will you have all 30 people 2 years later? So just keep that in mind when you're starting your first game, is plan out your game, keep it within a scope, limit your creep, and get in front of as many people as you can as soon as you can, and have people play it and test it, because otherwise you'll spin your wheels for a long time. Because we spun our wheels for like 2 years when we didn't know what we were doing, before we had a developer, before we had even source control. We just were making nothingness basically, and we learned so much, but it was like 2 years of non-development basically.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to go through and to learn the hard way. So it's good to be able to have that perspective and hopefully help other people avoid having to go through some potential hardship there. But I do also love the game that you do have. It has turned out quite wonderfully, if I may say so myself.
It's very excellent. You guys should all come join us on our Discord and ask more questions if you want, and jump in and start playing the game with us. It'd be super great.
Yes, that was, wow, you're ahead of me here. I was going to say, if anyone has more questions, because there were some great ones that we just unfortunately don't have time to get to. So if they have questions or want to learn more, where all can they reach out to you, or can they do this? Get in touch.
Yeah, quick note though, the game is actually, we are switching to a free-to-play model. So the game will actually be free for everyone starting in February.
And you can come talk to us in our Discord channel, which I guess could be posted under this video.
Yeah,
or something.
And the link to that.
like Nando said, ask questions of developers. We are generally very active in I check it continuously throughout the day, all day. So, I mean, I'm not the coding developer, if that's the questions you have, but we've got Nando here for sound, and Phil knows a bunch of stuff about code, and we have just general dev knowledge that if you want to ask questions. And we always love testers. You can come test.
Yes. Come break stuff.
Yeah, come break our game. It's fun to break it.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've got the Discord link just posted in chat there for anyone who's interested. We'll also make sure that we have all of the links associated both to the Steam for the game, as well as the Discord link in the description if you're viewing this later. But with that, is there anything else that y'all want to cover, or do you feel pretty good with that?
I feel good. This is really fun.
Hope to see some people join and play the game.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do go check it out. Go hang out with these wonderful humans. They're fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this today and walking through your project and parts of it and helping us get some more perspective on what it is to be an indie team and having to build stuff, with a small team and with limited resources and all that, but still make a really cool project. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. And also, thank you, everyone who came to watch the show today. It wouldn't be what it is without you and your interaction. And it is always lovely to see your wonderful, I would say faces, but at least usernames coming back week after week to come see what we're doing here. If you missed any part of the show, no worries. You can view all of our videos on our YouTube and Twitch channel afterwards. We record them and post them so you can view them at your leisure. Make sure you check it out if you missed any part of it. This was a really good one. Lots of very wonderful little tips and tricks and golden nuggets to tuck away in your pocket there. So if you missed any part of it, make sure you go back and check it out. But yeah, if you also want to keep up with news, you can follow us at Unreal Engine on all of our socials, as well as come join us in the forums. Come join us on the EDC.
Yeah.
It's a good time there. It's a really good time there. We answer questions,
go to
we have
Unreal
tutorials, all good stuff. Go to Unreal Fest. Yes, do it this year. If you
Always
didn't
wanna
last
find yourself
year.
an audio engineer.
Yes, it is. It is wonderful. Come join the community. It's a good time here. Promise you. But with that, one last big round of thank yous to our wonderful guests today, and we'll see all the rest of y'all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.